Hello, Noopur, and welcome. I'm Puneet Singh Gupta from the Wise Owl, and so happy to be here with you. Today, we are in conversation with the dynamic Noopur, who was the force behind the Indian Film Festival, IFFLA, Los Angeles, Indian Film Festival, Los Angeles, IFFLA, now in its 23rd year. Is that right, Noopur?
That's correct.
Okay. IFFLA is renowned for bringing groundbreaking and independent movies from South Asia to a global audience, to Los Angeles and beyond. It's showcasing movies, but it's championing creativity, nurturing new voices, and celebrating the transformative power of cinema. And so the Wise Owl does the same, promotes literature and arts, and we think cinema is a confluence of both. And we believe in the importance of supporting emerging talent like you do, preserving cultural narratives, and pushing the boundaries of creative expression. So, Nupur, let's dive in and you tell us more about it by telling us, our readers, about IFFLA and what is its role as a film festival in LA, Los Angeles, bringing South Asian cinema to Hollywood.
Yeah, of course. Firstly, very happy to be here. So exciting to have, a conversation with another publication that puts some much needed importance on art, which is, more and more relevant in today's world.
Right.
So excited for Wise Owl, and I hope it grows. IFLA has been around for 23 years, like you said, and it was started in the early 2000s. And it's sort of like, it started because of the great emerging wave of independent cinema in India and South Asia.
Uh-huh.
And it has grown with that, it has contributed to that, and together it has kind of snowballed into this effect where today you see Indian cinema is taking over, everything from theaters across the world. And I'm not talking just, the big masala Bollywood. I'm talking about what used to be called in India parallel cinema, and that was very much different from what, say, the larger number of audiences would go see in India. This is not parallel cinema. This is a whole new section of independent cinema, which is, which finds its audiences either in a very big way across the world, because there are so many South Asian communities and different types of South Asian communities around the world. Or, there's obviously much more, many more platforms now. There's all these streaming platforms, there's all these ways to go to a independent theater near you if you're outside of India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and you can find the films playing there. There's
Ah, that's
there's
amazing.
there's an ecosystem now that really helps. So I think IFLA was a big contributing factor to that, for the rise of South Asian cinema on the global platform, and we continue to do that, and we continue to evolve. Um, so yeah, I mean, it, it started by being between the two biggest film industries in the world, which was, say, Bollywood or the Indian film industry, and then Hollywood and Los Angeles. So it was bringing the best of the 100 years of Indian cinema and that aesthetic to Hollywood. And beyond that, it was also creating conversations, breaking cultural barriers, kind of like building an audience that would want to see stories that are not made inside a Hollywood system. And because it is based in Los Angeles, like you said, and because we are so closely tied to many, many aspects of Hollywood, it has become sort of our mission and our responsibility to also contribute, sort of like contribute to the actual making and the development of more independent cinema from South Asia, because we are trying, we've for decades we've been connecting the filmmakers who visit with vital partners in Hollywood, and we've just evolved with that in the last few years and started to do much more concrete and kind of formalize that support. And we have about 1,000 alumni at this stage and over the last 20 years. And these are the biggest names that Indian cinema has. Anurag Kashyap's Black Friday played here when it was banned from everywhere else in the world. It won the audience award at IFFLA, and then it released theatrically in India. Richi Mehta found representation at IFFLA, and then that led to Delhi Crime, which won the Best Emmy Award. Like there's
That's
so many stories that we can tell, not just about Indian filmmakers, but filmmakers from other South Asian countries that have found, not just an audience, but collaborators at IFFLA. And that to us is really what a film festival provides, beyond just screening films that are already completed to an audience which may be very minor, but kind of all become champions of that film in its journey. So, whether it is, I mean, Cannes is going on right now, and you can see that Indian films have taken over the biggest, most glamorous film festival in the world. There's obviously the red carpet of it all, but apart from, our films are really, causing ripples there, and people are really appreciating that. So whether it's on that platform, that is also a film festival at the end of it, there have been so many films at Venice, at Berlinale, at Sundance. We had actually at our just past IFFLA, we had Cactus Pier Suburbonda, which won the Grand Jury Award at Sundance earlier this year. And it's so interesting because now this is the second year in a row that an Indian film has won the International Competition Grand Jury Award. Last year, it was Shuchi Talati's Girls Will Be Girls, which also played at IFFLA just a few months, 4 months after that. And it was packed houses, and people just loved seeing these films because you don't get to see them. And this is where some of the best filmmaking and the best storytelling in the world is happening.
I have to agree with you, Noopur, because I was at the film festival and you'd invited me. And thanks to you, I got to see some beautiful movies. And also, thank you for clarifying, that this is not parallel cinema, or what was considered parallel cinema, but independent cinema that is really has has a life of its own, and it's really surging ahead and becoming popular and acceptable and sought after.
Yeah. Honestly, the difference between this and other movies is not in the content. These are still very universal stories. These are on themes that you and I, as regular people, can always relate to. This is not really what art cinema and parallel cinema used to be. The only difference is these movies are made independently outside of a studio system, or outside of, like, say, a Yash Raj Studios funding it, or like it costing so many crores because Shah Rukh Khan is starring in it. Not every story requires that. There's obviously the stories that we love and we will always go to a theater for that require that. But there are so many other stories out there. There are so many other perspectives out there. And these films still struggle to find not just the funding, the distribution, the audience, the way to continue. These filmmakers struggle to continue finding ways to continue making these kind of films. And that's why I think film festivals are the vital, part of that whole assembly line, because they give these filmmakers a reason to continue making these kind of films, which are so relevant to today's times.
Right. In fact, that was going to be my first question about next question about how are you supporting the creative community and these independent projects. But you've explained beautifully that you do it from not just screening, you do to get them to network.
For us, it's like, I think, as an independent filmmaker myself, I have found it is so difficult to get a project off the ground, and while trying to stay true to your vision, while trying to find the right producers who will nurture it, the right distributors who will care for it enough to find an audience, the right people to fund it. It's so difficult, So for us, it's not just supporting a film when it has already kind of completed most of its journey and already been made and edited and all of that. Like, for us, it's important to give filmmakers support right from the start when all they have is a script,
That's
but
amazing.
that's the difference, I think, between how Hollywood functions and how Mumbai functions, because Hollywood does really understand and pay a lot more, gives a lot more weight to the script, right? There's a lot more structured development in Hollywood, and that there are pathways, and there are support systems, there are grants, there are artist programs, there's all of these things that is an ecosystem of support that a filmmaker can get to kind of not only create the best version of the story they want to tell, but find, like I said, the right collaborators, the right funding partners, the right distributors. And for us at IFFLA, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Like, if we can easily connect those dots, why not? That
Absolutely.
helps us just have more great films that we can show at IFFLA down the years,
Yes,
right?
yes. That's wonderful and great support.
Yeah.
So the 23rd Film Festival
Yes.
um, of Los Angeles, IFFLA, just concluded a few weeks ago, right? And
Yes.
you were the producer. So
Yes.
tell us, how did it go? What was the favorite part of that for you? What was your biggest challenge there? Tell us about it.
Oh my God. Like, well, as the producer, I have to say I'm always just exhausted at the end of it. So, when you talk about challenges, it's just kind of it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
We are always challenged, I think, like every other film festival, with having bigger dreams than we have the funding for. Especially in the current political climate of America, we've been facing many challenges. But I think that's true of every film festival. Like I said, whether it's the Berlinales of the world or the much smaller festivals, we always have to be creative and find ways to continue doing the good work that we do. But yeah, I mean, IFFLA is so much fun every year. It's such a great time for us to bring together all the like South Asians, who live in LA, who live around LA, whether they're part of the creative community or not. Like, our audiences are, from 16 years old to 70 years old. There's no, I mean, our board member is 90 years old. There's just such a great cross section of people who are there for the love of cinema, who are there for watching quality content, and they know that they will get that at IFFLA. Doesn't matter which screening they walk into, because IFFLA has been known for the last 23 years for its beautifully curated programming. That's what IFFLA, the programmers work very hard, and they are so well connected, and they keep an eye on all the films that are coming out or into other festivals, and discovering new films from scratch. Like, all of this is so exciting for us as filmmakers or as creatives. And then just seeing how these films inspire the next generation of South Asian creatives. That, like, you would have seen, there's a lot of really emerging artists and emerging filmmakers and creatives and writers and producers and directors who come to IFFLA, and they get to watch these amazing films, and then they also get to not just watch them, they get to meet the filmmakers, they get to spend quality time having conversations with the filmmakers, they get to interact with each other, and they get to find collaborators within that community. So for us, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to get provide this platform and provide this safe space where all the South Asian creators can come together. It doesn't matter whether you've just done, you have a TikTok account that's precious to you, or you've made a film that's won Sundance. You should be able to talk to each other and exchange ideas.
That's amazing. And I've seen the exactly what you're describing that happened at the film festival, how the audience was able to interact with the filmmakers.
Yeah.
Filmmakers were able to, interact with. It's such a welcoming, informal, and
Yeah.
it really, really promotes all that creative exchange that happens at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was great to see. So, how do you think IFFLA as a film festival is different from the other film festivals that happen across the world?
That's a very good question. I mean, like I said, all film festivals have similar goals in mind, right? Like, we're just trying different pathways, and we're promoting different communities, or different types, genres, or different types of filmmaking, right? For us at IFFLA, our main mission what really sets us apart at IFFLA is that we are based in Los Angeles, right? And we have been here for a long time, and we have such deep connections with the Hollywood industry, right? So with the entertainment ecosystem around the world sort of shrinking, where everything is somehow connected back to the Hollywood companies and the agencies, and the funding comes from here. A lot of the development comes from here. There's such deeper ties. Doesn't matter whether it's um, global cinema, or whether it's what Netflix is making and what Amazon is making. There is just Hollywood has its hands in many pies, right? So for us, we see it as our responsibility to be as the only South Asian festival running in LA, and has been so established in LA. We see it as our responsibility to be able to provide those connections and provide the right collaborations. And it's we do that, like I said, with many different ways. In fact, Wise Owl, I believe, is based out of Chandigarh, and we actually partnered with a Cinevesture International Film Festival, which happens in Chandigarh. They've been there for the last 2 years. And this year was our first year of our partnership, where we brought a few projects curated together, that we curated together with Cinevesture, which are looking for Hollywood producers and funding and partners. And we brought those projects to LA and arranged about like 250 meetings total for 10 projects with potential partners that would really get these projects moving. You would really get the right support, rather than, like having the filmmakers struggle at every step of their journey.
Yeah.
So for us, we see ourselves as the vital bridge between these two big cinema crazy countries. Let's say that.
All right, amazing. Noopur, so how has the IFFLA community grown? I know you've talked about the community of the creative people, the filmmakers, the people at IFFLA who were trying to bring them together. And is there more to it? Tell me.
Yeah, of course. So so Christina Maruda, who started the festival in 2003, she's Greek, but she knows so much about Indian cinema. Like, I feel like she knows more than me. Um, but she's just really a fan of Indian cinema, so to say. And, she kind of went to the local Indian community here to find help and to start this platform, which was, there was a big gap. So, as IFFLA has evolved, in the beginning, there was a lot of diaspora audience that was older and kind of missing the kind of cinema that they would have wanted to see back in India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, etc.
Right.
And we are seeing, even with the American entertainment landscape changing, like I see there's obviously South Asians are one of the biggest immigrant communities in America, like the second largest after the Latinos, right?
Right.
And there may be a huge community here, but the representation of the community on screen, on television, on Hollywood, American television or Hollywood films has always been lacking, has always been misrepresented, stereotypical, right? And we see that changing now, only in the last, I would say, maybe 5 years or so, maybe 5 to 6 years, right? So because of that change, what's very interesting is we used to see a lot less South Asian creators, but because it's changing, we've seen so many young creatives be inspired. It's not such a taboo anymore to like move to Los Angeles to want to become a filmmaker as it was 12 years ago when I did it, and it's not, there are so many more, like we say, desi people or brown people in the every room you walk into. There's so much more on screen also now that is being created by brown people. And what's more important is that it's more authentic, right? They are choosing to tell the stories that matter to them. Right. So this obviously is also evolving. There's been a lot of stories about, the kind of migrant struggle, the kind of like parental parental gap between generations that is so common across, desi households. There's been so much about arranged marriage. Like, and I think what's happening is people are kind of tired of it. Like, people really want to see the joy. People want to see there's so much joy in our cultures. There's so much brightness, there's so much color, there's so much tradition, there's so much celebration in our culture, and people want to see that and not have it be framed as just a Bollywood dance or a wedding Sangeet dance or something like that. There's so many more nuances and aspects to the South Asian experience in any country around the world. And it's really exciting to us to see not just the audience changing that comes to IFFLA and goes to the theaters to see these films or is consuming this content on streaming platforms, but it's also the filmmakers whose films we're bringing. They're getting younger and younger, and they're having a wider and wider range of experiences that they're talking about. There's so many more women directors. There's so many more LGBTQ stories. There's so many stories on mental health. There's so much more social justice and political justice being talked about in very interesting and very impactful ways. And that to me, just seeing this change, I think it's the most exciting thing. Like, I have so much hope for cinema going forward.
That's amazing. And I totally agree with you. Yes, this trend is coming and you see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting and it's exciting and it's inspiring
Yeah.
because
It is very
because it's
inspiring. It's just
relevant.
great. It's like a revolution. We are ready for the next cinema revolution.
Yes. So, Noopur, thank you so much for talking to the Wise
Of
Out.
course.
Great to chat with you.
Of
And
course.
the IFFLA, the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles, the 23rd one, which just concluded this month, was absolutely amazing because I was lucky enough to see some of the movies there. So thank you for talking to the Wise Owl today.
Of course. My pleasure. And I wish that we continue this conversation, and wishing all the best to the Wise Owl team and to the audience.
Thank you. Thank you, Noopur. Bye-bye.